Welcome to 12 Scholars, a brand new podcast dedicated to personal development. In this week's show, we meet Elliott Norcliffe, a hairstylist by day and property developer by night.
Every day you should be doing something that gets you closer to your goal or what you want to achieve. And I think what you do in your downtime reflects a lot on how you're going to be at work and what you're doing in your own time. I call my day off job day if I'm not doing something, because it consists of doing jobs all the time. But it sets you up right because you're not wasting your day in bed or watching films or whatever. You're out there doing stuff.
Elliott established himself in Manchester as one of the youngest hairstylists at Vidal Sassoon, the eponymous hair salon, before moving on to join the family business at his parents' hair salon in Halifax. When he's not cutting hair at work, at home, or on holiday, he's a successful property developer. And at the age of 24, with 5 properties to his name, Elliott defies the current trend of his generation, being unable to save for a deposit and get on the property ladder. One of the keys to Elliott's success is how he chooses to spend his time. So we sat down with Elliott at his favourite restaurant to explore what makes him tick and how others can follow in his footsteps. So welcome, Elliott, to 12 Scholars.
Hi Bob, you alright?
I'm very well, thank you. So we're here today, sat in Manchester in the heart of Ancoats, and we're at Nam Restaurant. If you can hear anything in the background, it's because we're kind of sat downstairs on the restaurant. It's the lunchtime service going on at the moment. You may hear some kind of people passing by, some waiters. We're in a fairly kind of a relaxed corner at the moment. Would you describe yourself as a proactive person?
Yes, in a sense of, we all have days where we can't be bothered, this, that and the other, but at the same time, constantly looking to find things to do. I hate there's no such thing as being bored anymore. You can always find things to do. And whether I'm at work or whether I'm finding things, I don't know, I just like being busy. And, having those 2 days off a week out of the salon, you can be productive and do the other things. But you can also, you finish work sort of 6 o'clock or whatever, it's a long time before you're going to go to bed. You've got all that time then to do these, be productive and do all these things. Are you looking for property, looking for things to invest in, or just having a good time, I think being at home doing nothing is a, waste of time and a waste of life.
So who would you say has been your inspiration for, being proactive?
Definitely my dad. There's no such thing as a day off. Even if we are off, we're just going to do this, and this, and there's loads of jobs and things that we're doing all the time. So, as much as it gets on my nerves, it does set the bar, because if you're not doing something, you feel like you should be.
So your dad's always got a list of things for you to do.
I call my day off job day if I'm not doing something, because it consists of doing jobs all the time. But it sets you up right because, you're not wasting your day in bed or watching films or whatever. You're out there doing stuff, and it sets the goal. And when you see him doing stuff all the time, it makes you think, well, I should be doing it, and then it spirals and it, progresses. It's a waste not doing anything. And I think what you do in your downtime reflects a lot on how you're going to be at work and what you're doing in your own time.
So how would you describe your early years that shaped you in terms of being proactive and being the person you are today?
Quite a young age, I always wanted to work. So long school holidays and, going and working at my parents' business, and then, trying to find a Saturday job, and just constantly being out. If I wasn't at the salon or I wasn't at school, I'd be constantly doing something. And then obviously I decided I wanted to do hairdressing, so I went over to Sassoon, got a job there, because I thought if I'm going to leave school, I want to be doing it at the best place that I can get in at.
So what age was that?
So I was at 16. In fact, I worked Saturdays before I left school, actually. And then after that, I went to work there full time. And then 3 years to qualify. And then started getting into the property after that, which is where we are now.
Fab. So can you recall any kind of key moments growing up that helped you work on that first property, or kind of key moments that helped you get on that property ladder?
Yeah, I actually was going to buy a car like any 18-year-old lad, Wants a new car, you've worked, you've saved for it. So went test drove one, and then from there went home, told my dad what I was doing, and he was like, absolutely not. You're not buying a new car until you've bought a house. So obviously I was, not in the best of moods, because I just had my heart set on this car, test drove, was ready to go. And anyway, so I took his advice on board as much as I didn't want to, and started looking for houses, came across one, and the guy who was selling it, it was more hassle to him than anything, so he wanted rid, so I managed to get quite a good deal on it, got quite a decent, we agreed a price and then went from there. And anyway, bought it, it didn't take much renovating. And then I started renting it out and seeing the sort of return that you got for your money and sort of seeing how much money you could make. And it seemed daft to be wanting to put that kind of money in something that was going to depreciate in value. You know, this is going to go up in value. So as soon as I finished that one, started looking for the next. And obviously, you've got to save quite a substantial deposit on a buy-to-let. You know, it's not easy. You've got to seriously sacrifice a lot of things to be able to put that kind of deposit down. But you've got to sacrifice to be able to get to where you want to get to, I think.
So what sort of sacrifices have you made along the way?
I suppose one of them was, you know, leaving Manchester and going to work in, which one is a sacrifice in a sense, because I was happy there and I had a great time. But at the same time, you know, that time for me on the train, the travel, the cost was dead money. It was just dead time. What else are you sacrificing? Nights out, holidays, festival, you know, luxuries in life. You've got to sacrifice. You've got to seriously rein in your outgoings to get that money together, to get the deposits. And, you know, until you've got your first couple, it's not easy at all. You've got to seriously save and work.
And what sort of sacrifices do you think that you've made that perhaps your friends or your peers haven't?
Yeah, like I said, if all your mates are going on holiday and you can't go because you need to work to pay that, or you're in the middle of a project, you know, all your friends are going away. And at this sort of age, it's quite hard to, you know, you've got to have some serious willpower. It's not, you know, I work Saturdays, some Sundays and Tuesdays, so, you know, if everyone's going out or doing something on the Friday night, I can go, but I've got to, you know, you can't be staying out all night. So you do miss out on a lot, but at the same time, then when you do have your free time and you can do it, you do enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, because Saturday's very much that one day you've always worked on a Saturday.
Yeah, always that. And I tell you what, going into hairdressing has taught me quite a lot, because that thing of that fear of missing out and all the rest
FOMO
of it.
That everyone talks about.
Everyone talks about it. And I've got a lot of friends that literally admit, they said they can never not, you know, they can never not do something. Whereas working Saturdays, you learn that pretty early on. So, you know, you're not going to be going out on Friday, you're not going to be doing this, that, and the other. And for a young lad, that takes some doing, because, you know, you want to be doing all them things.
Yeah. Describe a typical work day for us.
So my first client's at 9, but I like to get to work for 8:30. I've got a 20-minute drive, which is nothing compared to what I used to have. Get in early, get everything set up, so when your first client comes in, I hate being unorganised. I like being organised. You know, when your clients come in, I want to be ready. There's no point turning up at 1 minute to 9 and then being rushed and behind. You get in early, get everything sorted. You know, back-to-back clients, I don't really like having a dinner. I used to, whereas now I just want to I don't want a gap in the middle of the day, because I find that the minute you have that time to sort of chill out, I just crash. I'd rather just keep going right till the end of the day. You know, certain days are busier than others, but trends are changing. And I'll work until I finish my last client, and then it will be, you know, if I want to go for a drink, I'll go for a drink. If I want to go out for some food or see some friends, but yeah, usually getting myself home, getting sorted for the next day. I get a Tuesday off, so, you know, as of sort of next week, the week after, we'll be skiing on a Tuesday, so we'll be getting that sorted for, and then on a Sunday, well, I've only just got my days off back, so it's been nice. So in the past 3 days, I've been to York, up to the Dales, and then I'm here today in Manchester. So yeah, it's just nice having my days off. I've been using my time really, and going to see, because I've not felt like I've had any time to myself.
Because you've been property developing.
Been
working on properties.
Yeah, been renovating the house. So as soon as that's finished now, I've been, you know, going out for the day and just enjoying a bit of my own time. And it's just felt nice to have your own time back, you know.
So if we go back to your early career then, what do you remember about that first day at work?
Just excited. Glad to be out of school. You know, as much as I got my results and all the rest of it, I knew from even early as primary school, I used to envy my parents going to work, because I had to go to school and I wasn't getting paid to go and I wasn't doing anything. So it seemed like a complete waste of time within reason. So then the minute I left school, I was just buzzing to be, you know, working in that atmosphere and get treated like an adult as well. Because when you're at school, you're so... an interesting thing about school, though, when it came to leaving, so obviously you let them know the decision, what you're doing, whether you were staying on for sixth form or whatever. And a lot of the teachers were quite funny about the fact that you were going to work, which I think is ridiculous. The fact that someone's leaving, you should be, you know, saying, because I think the problem of today is people seem to get it in their head, without this education, without going to uni, you're never going to get anywhere, which is, you know, some people do amazing, like by going through education, but at the same time, you can still do it without.
And that's quite unusual, because your school was Rishworth?
Yeah. So it was just, I think it was all about the numbers, and they wanted you to stay on and stuff. But yeah, some of them were a bit funny about it, and I was just like, you know, education isn't everything.
So you're then kind of working at Vidal Sassoon in Manchester.
Yeah.
What sort of kind of lessons learned did you know, how did you find Vidal? I mean, quite an inspirational brand.
Oh yeah, discipline, you know. Long day, you know, your work ethic, working hard, wanting to be the best, and, you know, perfection is a thing. And I think that's standard. You realise even though it's hairdressing, it's got nothing to do with property, that sort of level and standard can be achieved. And that's so why can't you take that and then, use it in the rest of your life? And working with all different walks of life and, your clientele are very interesting, and learning from them as well.
So very much kind of taking the lessons from Vidal and actually bringing that to the property development side now.
Yeah, especially the long days, the long hours, the hard work, but then the standard. If you're going to do it right, you may as well do it. If you're going to do it properly, you may as well do it right, might you?
Yeah. So talk us through the decision then. You spent 5 years working in Manchester.
Yeah.
And, commuting from Halifax to Manchester.
Yeah, and the trains up here are a nightmare. So, constantly having to get the early train, delayed, late. It just got to a point where you just felt that you weren't being productive because you were wasting so much time stood around waiting for. And once I'd got my training at Sassoon and my experience, for me, it was ready to, it was time to move on. And, go work for the family business, because eventually, the plan will be to take over that as your parents are getting older and stuff. It's and it's nice to give something back to them, because they supported me a lot whilst I was coming to Manchester every day. Because obviously you're on an apprenticeship wage and stuff. So it's nice to kind of give something back to them now by working as hard as I can.
So you've now been spending 2 years in Halifax?
2 years, yeah. Built up my clientele again, because that's another thing, sacrifices. I've had to, lose 95% of my clientele and rebuild it again. So the last 2 years, I've been building it up again. So you've gone back to, not back to square one, but you've gone back to days where you might not have anyone in, or you're really quiet, and then slowly but surely you build it back up. But for the bigger picture, so I've sacrificed these 2 years, but then in, the next couple of years, it'll definitely benefit.
Yeah. So on the property front then, what memories do you have about buying your first property? And how old were you?
I was 18. Was he 18 or 19? 18 and 19. And to be honest, I didn't want to. I wanted the car. So anyway, viewed it, found it, managed to negotiate, got it cheap enough. And then obviously, it's a learning curve. Applying for a mortgage, your deposit, learning all these things. And didn't even know why you needed property insurance, or how to go about a mortgage and all these things that you have to come. So just about bought my first. I mean, it was a very cheap property, and it didn't need that much renovation. However, when I rented it out and seen the whole package, that's what really got me going.
And you bought it with the intent of renting it out?
Always, yeah. Because I'm doing a buy-to-let mortgage. If I'd sold it on, it wouldn't be worthwhile. So I always rent them. I've not sold one yet. The goal in the future might be, if the opportunity there was to flip it, to buy it, renovate and sell it on, then that's something I'm looking to get into as well.
So how soon after you bought your first property did you then buy your second property?
So at the moment I'm doing about one a year. The goal will be to up those numbers, when over time get to 2 a year, 3, and keep going like that. Because you've got to save such a substantial deposit. That's all I can afford to do at the minute. And that's with sacrificing quite a lot of other things. But then, eventually as the numbers go up, I'll be able to do a lot more a year. And then that's where the hairdressing might have to take a little backseat, so I can, invest more time into it. But at the minute, for me, it's working nicely.
Talk us through the selection criteria. So how would you go about choosing your properties? What do you look for in a good property?
Potential returns. So obviously on your rental, how much it's going to be worth. Yeah, sort of growth, but also the area. If you can pick an area like Ancoats, for example, up and coming, it's a great place. If you buy in an area that's already quite substantial, it's already sort of peaked, so you're not going to be making that much money, and it's also, it's already established. What else would I look for? Just general. It all depends on how much time you've got as well into put into. If you didn't want a massive project, you're not going to buy something that needs completely gutting and going again.
Because one of the things that you've done with your properties is you've gone in there and very much stripped them back to kind of the bare brick and done as much work as you can yourself, haven't you? And you've now got your team around you helping you.
Yeah, you know what, we've got, if you can give your tradesmen, look after them, pay them on time, give them regular work, they're there at the drop of a hat. And also finding good tradesmen is not easy. So when you do have them, you want to look after them, and you want to, because at the end of the day, if you put too much into something and you've made a loss, then there's no point doing it unless you've learned from your mistakes and what have you.
If we can talk a bit about kind of lessons learned or mistakes made over the years, as everybody does when they're kind of buying properties or developing them. When you look back over these first 5 properties of yours, what kind of lessons learned have you found with properties?
Never listen to the estate agent, because they're always going to try and, at the end of the day, the salesman, aren't they? So they're trying to get you to buy. Do your homework, do your research. It's like with anything. And what I've learned is, always view the properties different times of the day, and take someone with you. You know, you get excited about the whole situation, so you miss what's actually there. And if it doesn't hurt to view it 2-3 times. You spend a lot of money on this and you're investing in it. Mistakes and lessons I've learned. Different ways of sort of renovating them, I once learnt the hard way by not getting a quote for a job. Someone charged me an absolute fortune, so you get ripped off, do you know what I mean? Little things like that.
And you've got 5 properties to date.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Another 5 at least, maybe more. Yeah, at least 5. Obviously move out.
Move out from the parents.
Yeah, still living at home, so probably move out. Yeah, let's aim for another 5, or maybe if we could get 6, maybe because it is going to hopefully get a little bit easier. So hopefully be able to get another one. But then if we're going old school, this is my dad's advice. It'd be pay off what you've got. You know what I mean? Whereas I'm sort of a little bit more forward in a sense of I'm taking a bit more of a risk. He's old school. He wants to he'd sort of do one, pay it off, do one. Whereas I'm sort of thinking the potential from reinvest, and then eventually it'll pay off hopefully. So that's 2 different. I've taken Eddie's advice on board and got into it, but then the way I look at the way I'm going forward with it's slightly different. But that might just be my generation, do you know what I mean? Because they're, when you speak to older people, they're like, if you can't afford it, you don't have it. Whereas my generation's very much like people are having things as and when.
When it comes to investing time wisely, what sort of advice would you give our listeners or readers to help them maximise each day?
So I always think, depending on what time you start work, you can always get up earlier. You can always do things in the morning, and don't leave things for your day off. If you get in from work and you've got a couple of hours, rather than spending your time on your day off doing these jobs, why don't you get them done when you get in? Or, if you, like I said, get up earlier, do something. But if you're going to go to the gym after work, why don't you go before work? And then it gives you the whole evening. So
for somebody who doesn't look after their time, what would that look like in your eyes?
Probably late for work because they didn't get up early enough. And then after work would probably consist of going to the pub or being hungover, and then on the days off, and then before they know it, they've gone through the weekend and then they're back to work, and they're just living from going to work, dragging themselves there, being hungover on a weekend and not ever thinking about the future either.
So very much a wasted opportunity, wasted day, not thinking about the future. Yeah. Very much living for today and not planning for tomorrow.
Yeah. And, you've got to think long term, you don't live for the week. You need to be planning 10, 20, 30 years ahead of what it depends what your goal is. I think if you set yourself a realistic goal, you should be able to achieve it, and then your goals should keep getting harder and harder as you go on. The better you are with your time and more productive. So
very much using your time towards reaching those goals, making sure you're working that way.
Definitely, yeah.
So what would an excellent use of time be in your eyes?
I think obviously you need downtime as well to sort of recuperate. You don't know wear yourself out, but I feel like every day you should be doing something that gets you closer to your goal or what you want to achieve. And if you're not, then why not? And
to prepare that back then, what would a good use of time be?
You still need a bit of time when you see your friends, see your family, but then the rest of the time it's pretty solid with working where you want to get to. Because I do think it's important to have that downtime as well. You still want to be happy at the end of the day. And if you're not happy, I think that'd reflect in your work as well. So yeah, good use of time. You've still got a couple of hours a week where you can do things that you enjoy and not feel guilty in doing it.
And how would you typically spend your downtime?
In the summer, I like to water ski. Get up early, get down to the lake, ski all day. And it's good because by the end of it, you're absolutely worn out. It's a nice feeling, actually, when you've had a day like that. In the winter, to be honest, in the winter, we usually have a project on, so we're doing the house. To me, when I'm at the house 2 days, it's manual labour. It's completely different to what I'm doing. So it actually feels like, not downtime, but it feels completely different. So you don't mind working.
Yeah, okay, so it's a different skill set.
Yeah, and I find that, let's say in my job, if I was just cutting hair 7 days a week, by the end of it, you start to hate it, and then once you've had a day off, you're back but whereas I find if I do a couple of days hairdressing and then a couple of days on the property, it's not like I've worked all the same. It's a different feeling because it's a different set of skills. You feel different. It's a different sort of work. So I think sometimes it is quite important not to maybe do all of the same thing. If you can have 2 little things that you do, at different times.
Very much come back, fully recharged.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, what sort of top tips would you give our listeners or readers about time management, how to invest their time more wisely? You've talked a bit about commuting, making the most there.
Yeah, work-life balance, if you... I think you've got to work when you need to work. You know what I mean? You can't just say you're going to work from these hours, this hours. If a customer or a client rings you at this time and that's when you need to, I think that is, for me, we'd all like to work from, a couple of hours a day, but it doesn't happen, does it? You need to seriously evaluate and then look at your work and different week to week, month to month, things change. We have busy periods. And then when you have a quieter week or whatever, then you can do all the other things,
So I'd imagine in the hair salon, towards Christmas or kind of thing.
Yeah. In fact, this week, Friday, Easter, probably one of the busiest days of the year. So you know full well you need to be fresh. And then, so say if I had some paperwork or something to do, it'd be done, today, just before we're going to come to because I know this weekend it's going to be absolutely mental. So I'm not going to have time to do it. So plan ahead. Plan ahead of what you're going to do, and yeah,
plan ahead. And you mentioned before about getting to know your customers, so so you can actually help them.
Really important, and I think if your customers work a certain time shift, work a certain day, and then they've got sort of an afternoon off, use your time wisely and productively. If they can come in on a Wednesday afternoon and that frees up your weekend for somebody else, use that to your advantage.
What advice would you give your younger self if you were to start out all over again?
I mean, I did start pretty young. However, I could have probably started a little bit earlier. Once you get the bug for it, and I think once you see where, that for me was, just wish I'd started it earlier and maybe found somebody that you could potentially go into business with as well. Because I've not found that yet. I'm very much doing it on my own. I know I get my dad's advice and stuff, but you can do a lot more with another person on board. So probably try and get somebody else on board and go into it with them,
If anyone wants to know any more about Monroes, the hair salon, where would you send them?
I'd send them to my Facebook page, which is Elliott Norcliffe at Monroes Hair.
So, Elliott, thanks ever so much for today.
Pleasure.
So that was Elliott Norcliffe, with his infectious enthusiasm. One of those guys you meet that, despite his age, inspires you to do more with your life. In this episode, we learned how Elliott chooses to spend his day, investing his time wisely in everything he does. Elliott's advice for time management is to start early, focus on your goals, and get things done today rather than waiting for tomorrow. We discussed the sacrifices he's made in order to get on the property ladder. Elliott doesn't suffer from FOMO and is quite happy to miss out on certain things. He advises reining in your outgoings to get that deposit together. He's definitely a living example of delayed gratification. His values of discipline and hard work can be attributed to his family life and starting his career early. Always interested to learn more, Elliott is learning every day from the clients he meets. But the real key to Elliott's success is how he chooses to spend his downtime. In property development, he's found a passion that he's good at, one that enables him to switch off from his day job and start investing in his future. For most people, owning one property by the time they're 30 is a laudable goal. But for Elliott, he's chosen to invest his time differently and is well on track to owning 10 properties by the time he's 30. The challenge for everyone listening is to ask yourself, how can you invest your time more wisely? That was a 12 Scholars podcast. To find out more, visit our website and subscribe to our printed journal at 12scholars.com.